It's time for Electric Gold. Here I am. I'm Ryan. I'm here with Evan, John. Welcome, you guys. Glad to be with you this evening. It's Tuesday, April 30th. We're 2 or 3 days out from Nashville's most recent soccer game, and we're going to dig into all of that in just a moment. How are you guys doing this evening?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
I'm feeling pretty good. Evan, how about yourself?
I'm doing well, buddy. It's great to be with you guys.
Of course, folks that are listening, they can't see, but you guys are both decked out in some really awesome shirts. Evan with the vintage Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness shirt.
I'm feeling a little melancholy this week, so I thought it might be appropriate.
Pro.
Some of those mid-90s feels.
Right.
So, yeah, that is appropriate. And then, of course, John sporting the Wu-Tang gear over here.
Represent the Wu till the day I die.
Awesome. Looking good, fellas. And while we're at it, let me ask some more personal questions. Like, what are you drinking for the podcast this evening? Evan, what are you drinking?
Well, tonight I am bringing it back home to Nashville and having The Rose by the Black Abbey Brewing Company, created, not made by them. It's a Belgian-style blonde ale. It's got some nice clove and candy banana aromas and a slightly hazy taste. I'm really enjoying it. It's light and silky, kind of like me on the dance floor.
That's fantastic. The Rose is one of my very favorite Nashville beers. It's a classic. I don't recall ever seeing Evan on the dance floor at like one of those dances after the homecoming or something like that at school. Were you out there like breaking out the Vanilla Ice moves or something like that? The hammer dance or anything?
I highly doubt it, but I do remember going to the dances and enjoying watching the headbangers come out when Enter Sandman, they would mix in Enter Sandman with all the hip hop, and all of a sudden the headbangers would come out of the shadows and just really, really go crazy. So yeah, that's my memory of the high school dances.
Their one moment of glory.
You know, my memory is when the more adventurous DJs at those dances, they would throw on Primus.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that was when I would go nuts.
Yeah.
I'd start throwing chairs around. Pretty sure I got the shit shut down.
The early 90s were kind of awesome in a way because you had high school dances where not only would they play dance music, hip hop music, as you're saying, but they would mix in some really interesting stuff like Primus, like Metallica. Who knows what you might hear from song to song. It was a diverse time, a more diverse time than current music landscape. So I'm glad that we grew up when we did. John, what are you drinking this evening?
I am also representing Nashville. I am drinking a new beer from Tailgate Brewery called the Cerveza con Lime. It's like a Mexican lager with a little bit of lime, kind of like they've got like a Dos Equis in Geodis Park with lime. Is that right? I think it's Dos Equis. I can't remember it. Anyway, it's like that, but way better, and it's really good. My only problem is that if you're going to do Spanish, you need to go all the way. So it should have been called Cerveza con Limón, which is the Spanish version of lime.
John, you should have been a diplomat with all of these languages and accents and things, you know.
Hablo un poquito de español.
I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds impressive.
I say gracias a Señora Nave, my high school Spanish teacher.
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't heard from her in 30 years, so I hope she's still out there and doing well because she was a really good Spanish teacher. Because I still remember some of the shit.
Way to go. I took Latin, which is completely useless to me today, and I don't think you could even converse with it, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
I am, however, drinking the Kona Big Wave Liquid Aloha. This is misleading a little bit. You might think that this is based out of Hawaii. They actually have breweries all over the West, California, Colorado, other places as well. It's not a full-on IPA. This is like an introductory beer into that world. It's a very premium golden ale that they've brewed here. Light, refreshing, smooth. Definitely an excellent beer for spring or summertime. So glad to be drinking it with you guys. Cheers to you, boys.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys.
Okay, guys, what do you say we dig into it and start off with the week in review? Nashville SC began the week with the announcement of 2 roster transactions. First, they shipped seldom-used winger Mackenzie Gaines off to the Houston Dynamo in exchange for $75,000 in general allocation money. Then NSC leveraged those newfound funds as part of another transaction, trading a total of $350,000 in general allocation money to the Philadelphia Union in exchange for a 2024 and 2025 international roster slot. Nashville's other international roster spots are already spoken for, so this provides them with flexibility to add another talent from outside the MLS during the summer transfer window. The injury news just keeps getting worse for Nashville as the left leg injury sustained by Lucas McNaughton in the Miami game was revealed to be a serious one. McNaughton underwent surgery this past Tuesday, and Coach Gary Smith described his recovery time to be a long-term one. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but Randall Leal was injured once again. After missing significant time in 2023, Leal began the season on the injured list with a nagging hamstring injury and was picked up training for international play. He finally made his debut as a substitute 2 weeks ago against Miami, only to suffer a hip injury the following week during practice. Once again, the injury is being described as a substantial one, and that will require a long-term period for recovery. Nashville returned home to Geodis Park this past weekend to face San Jose, who was residing in last place in the Western Conference. San Jose entered the match having won only once and losers of 8 matches so far and a goal differential of -11. Nashville, meanwhile, wasn't faring much better in 14th place in the East, with only 1 win, 3 losses, and 4 draws on their record. There was certainly cause for optimism in this match as both Walker Zimmerman and Tyler Boyd appeared as available for the squad for the first time in months. Joe Willis returned to start and goal after a 3-game hiatus. Nashville began the game in reliable form, and as has been the case in so many matches this season, they took to the early lead. How they took the lead was most encouraging, as captain Hany Mukhtar rifled his second goal of the season into the right corner from outside the box in just the 19th minute. Despite a number of chances, however, Nashville was unable to do any more damage before halftime. In the second half, another familiar tune began to play for Nashville as their early lead disintegrated. Jack Scahan caught the Nashville defense sleeping as he slipped past everyone to receive a well-placed pass in the box and easily scored one-on-one versus Willis. The rest of the game played out in disappointing fashion. While there were opportunities to score and Nashville outshot San Jose 17-9, nothing substantial materialized, and the teams went to the locker room with a 1-1 tie. Nashville remains at 14th place in the East, and they are 5 points off of a playoff spot. So guys, this evening we're going to do something a little bit different. I want to kick off our discussion this evening with a chat about the concept of nature versus nurture, which has been a long-standing debate in biology, psychology, and in society in general. The age-old question ponders whether who we are as people, the personalities, the tendencies, the strengths and weaknesses that we all harbor deep within us, whether those traits are programmed into genes and carried to us through DNA strands as the sum product of our hereditary lineage, or whether those traits were developed and cultivated during our lives through our experiences and our environments. The concepts first were documented as far back as the 200s BC in China. And even ancient Greek philosophers seem to play in this space. But really, if you want to get to the heart of where this concept really started to take shape, you have to look at the OG enlightener, John Locke. He was one of the big thought gangsters of the 1600s, and he was riffing on the work of his homie Isaac Newton, who had started to really explore the space of what it means to be human. John Locke dropped the joint tabula rasa, which is this idea that the mind is born as a blank slate. And while he did respect René Descartes, he had a significant disagreement with him. Descartes insisted that we all arrive with some innate sense of God and self when we are born. His opinions were widely accepted views at the time, but Locke disagreed. He insisted on the idea that men are what they learn, that they're products of their education. He was in the nurture camp of this argument, and he was mostly judged harshly for these views during his life. But then later, the collation of his psychological theories with his liberal political assertions, those were a great inspiration to people like Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, and many of the other American forefathers who encoded the concepts of free will and independence into the documents that founded America. And these ideas also inspired countless other liberal revolutionaries around the world in the centuries since. But then let's jump to the 19th century and talk about a crazy cat named Francis Galton, the guy who actually coined the phrase nature versus nurture. His cousin was Charles Darwin, who we all know was the person who identified the concept of evolution. Now, Darwin got all the fame and glory, but Galton was dropping some genius of his own. He developed concepts of differential psychology. He actually is the person who figured out how to classify fingerprints. He devised the first weather map, and he invented the first whistles that could test differential hearing abilities, like a dog whistle. He actually was born in Birmingham, but I doubt he was an Aston Villa fan. He was probably more likely to be a Sheffield guy or maybe a follower of Nottingham Forest. But anyway, Galton was really smart. His problem was, though, is that he knew he was smart, and he had no problem telling everyone so. He'd been born into a wealthy family with a privileged lifestyle, and he never exhibited much ability to relate to the common man or to the teeming masses. He also landed squarely on the nature side of this biological debate, stating to his cousin Darwin that genius was an ability that was both exceptionally high and at the same time it was inborn. And he fervently worked throughout his life to prove that genius was a matter of ancestry. See, he had this rigidity of belief that really handcuffed him from a consideration of opposing views. He dove deep into the laws of heredity. He had a vast knowledge and mastery of statistics and biology, medicine, and anthropology. When you combine these with his entitled and arrogant personality, it led him to develop into the forefather of a concept that had sweeping and dangerous consequences. He developed the idea of eugenics. His later life was filled with ideas around planned human selection and breeding to develop a superior strand of person with advanced cognition, intelligence, and athleticism. These were dangerous and racist ideas, of course, and they were the basis for the racist genocide and prejudices that we have seen proliferated throughout the next 150 years of World War and social unrest. But, you know, guys, this nature versus nurture debate, it's raged on for centuries, and the great thinkers who have participated in these debates, they've inspired some of humanity's most shining successes and some of its worst crimes. And yet, the discussion is not resolved. Debate rages on, even here in modern-day Nashville, and even within the ranks of the Nashville SC supporters. So I posit to the both of you, my good friends John and Evan, to now dive into this lively debate and help determine a final answer once and for all. Are the failures of this soccer team that we are witnessing this year the result of its roster construction, i.e. was it born this way, the nature argument, or is it the result of coaching and execution? In other words, a product of its influences, the nurture argument.
Wow, that was amazing. I am fired up. John, do you want to take this first or not? I mean, I love this.
Yeah, I would say that, Ryan, tonight I'm drinking a tailgate cerveza con lime.
Yeah, we've already done that part.
Oh, okay, my bad. Sorry. And then I would say, in answer to your question, I would say yes.
Nice. Nicely done. So
okay.
The reason why,
yes.
I'll say, that honestly, was a really ridiculous introduction to the podcast, but let me tell you what motivated it.
I totally get it.
We're standing there in the supporter section at the San Jose game the other night, and the crowd's starting to chant, "Gary out.
Gary out. Gary out."
And my eyes got big, and I looked at you, and you looked at me, and your eyes were really big, and we're like, oh boy, it's happening.
It's happening.
It's in the heart of the supporter section. It wasn't just 2 or 3 dudes. It was a lot of people. But then at the same time, there was this other faction of people behind us screaming, what's he supposed to do? It's the people that he's got on the roster. He didn't pick the players, blah, blah, blah. So now this argument is occurring. And that's the genesis of this idea. Is the team's failures the result of the nature or the roster building or the nurture, the coaching? Because I think that has a lot to do with what are the next moves for the team. Someone's going to have to go. And is it the people building the roster, or is it the people that are designing the strategy of the team?
And that's why my answer was yes. I think it's equal fault here. I think that, okay, Gary's tactics, they are what they are. They are currently not working, and he has no flexibility.
Just like Galton.
Just like Dalton. But yeah, every game, it's the same game, isn't it? We look good in the first half. We're aggressive. And then if we don't extend that lead, it's like we fall back in that shell. And it's true that we do have a lot of injuries. it is true. We knew that we were going to have a lot of games. We've mentioned this before. We did not build with a long season in mind, to me. Like in the offseason, we did not acquire the depth that we needed. I think the general feeling in the offseason was that last year, the League's Cup was the real Nashville SC and not what followed. And maybe that is entirely wrong. The League's Cup was the outlier, and what followed was what the real Nashville SC was, and we needed to have a whole rethink about it, and we didn't. So, yes, the answer is yes.
Both.
We have a crappy roster, and it's being managed in a crappy way.
I think that idea that the League's Cup is the outlier seems to be more and more realistic, and it's not just that what followed after is the real NSC. I think that what was before it was probably also the real NSC. I don't think they were playing that well before League's Cup either.
Yeah, there was like a month before League's Cup where we really sucked pretty bad.
Yeah. Evan, what say you?
Well, I absolutely love this. And of course, I didn't know you were going to be bringing this conversation up this week, but I've actually been recently thinking about this nature and nurture argument. Have you all been following the story around the Stanford professor Robert Sapolsky and his book just published last year called Determined, I think, where he argues that essentially we humans do not have free will. Now, I think he makes a pretty compelling argument, to be quite honest with you. I definitely think it's more nature than nurture in terms of an individual. Carrying that forward to the team, John's right. Yes is the answer. It's a combination of both. But again, if free will doesn't even exist, what does that mean for the team? I think it means that regardless of the roster and the coach, I think MLS teams, given salary caps, are just going to rise and fall. I think it may be inevitable. I think you're going to have a time when everything is clicking. There's a good feeling. In our case, we started off strong as an expansion side, and we had an incredible outlier in Hany Mukhtar and his performance, particularly in 21 and 22. And things just came together beautifully for a while. But like every other MLS team in history, it doesn't last. It comes and goes. So, yeah, I think it's a combination of both, and I'm not even sure there's anything you can do about it in MLS.
Yeah, because if there's no such thing as free will, then Gary really can't do anything about this, can he?
He probably can't, but that doesn't necessarily mean he should stay, right? Because in order to get that vibe back, that ascension, you just might need to break it all apart and rebuild it until the magic happens again.
So whether you're on the nature or the nurture side of that, of the actual biological debate and how that relates to Gary Smith's coaching, I think there's a case to be made that either way, he should be replaced, because either he has free will and he is a poor judgment of what should be done to find success on the field, or he doesn't have free will and we need to find a coach who is programmed in a different way to have a different strategy on the field. Either way, there should be a different strategy on the field. And there should also, I think you guys are both right. The answer is yes. We need different players as well, particularly in the midfield.
Yes, very, very much so.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen any of the recent articles around the statistics of our midfield, but Sean Davis and Brian Anunga in particular are near the bottom of all midfielders in the MLS in terms of their ability to create offense, to generate opportunities, to move the ball forward into the attacking half of the field. They're in the 100th and 108th and 112th, whatever ranking of all players in the MLS.
When you pass the ball out of bounds to a player who's just been subbed off the pitch,
yes,
your numbers are going to be pretty low.
Yeah, that was amazing. Anunga found a very open Drew Yearwood. He was open because he was no longer in the game. It was a pretty stunning moment. And it was kind of glossed over. I guess everybody just moved on. But I was like, that dude just passed to somebody who isn't playing right now. So anyway, I appreciate you guys indulging me on my philosophical exploration there.
That was the most fascinating thing we've ever done.
So,
thank you.
Yes, I agree. But the question remains, did we resolve the debate?
Well,
the centuries-old debate, is it closed now?
Is it closed right now? With this podcast?
I think that we've pretty much wrapped it up. It's a little bit of both is the answer.
With this podcast about the 26th best team in MLS, did we close a centuries-old debate?
I think so. And I think that all of you scientists and philosophers and social whatever you are, you can go ahead and just wrap this one up and move on to the next thing. Solve a real problem.
We got it.
Cool. Well, since we got that, let's go ahead and move on to the best and the worst. Okay, guys, it's time for you guys to let me know what's the best thing that you saw this week and then the worst thing. We'll start with the best, and I'll start with you, John. What was the best thing that you saw? It can be in the game, out of the game. At some point, I think we've got to give up about saying what are the best and worst things that we saw in the game, because you could just play the podcast from 4 weeks ago and it would be the same answer. So...
Well, I will stick with an in-game moment. Hany Mukhtar's goal, baby. That was really pretty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he was trying a lot. He had like 10 shots from outside the box. It's like I don't know if he was listening to us last week.
Mm-hmm. He probably was.
It's like he heard Evan saying that he wasn't going to be an elite MLS goal scorer anymore and said, "Fuck you, Evan. I'm sticking this one in the top corner."
And then you can stick it right up your ass, right?
I wish he'd done it more than once. But yeah, that was reminiscent of old times. I jumped up and down. I lost my mind. The rest of the game was shit after that. But yeah, that was wonderful. It was a wonderful moment.
I believe it was either his 100th or 101st career MLS game. I thought I read that it was his 100th. I might be off on that, but I know it's right around there.
Yeah, it was his 100th regular season career goal contribution in 120 games, his 60th regular season MLS goal.
That's an incredible statistic.
Yeah.
100 goals in 120 games.
Yes, only the 11th player in MLS history to reach that milestone in 120 games or less.
Hey, congratulations, Hany Mukhtar.
Yeah, he's definitely been more aggressive the past 2.5 games, I'd say. I thought it last game against Miami, he seemed like a different person than he has in the first month and a half, really pushing a lot harder. Not necessarily getting any kind of better results for the team, but certainly he individually is looking a lot more spry than he has. And that's exciting. And even if we're going to suck for the rest of the year, if we can still have a good Hany Mukhtar year out of it, then at least there's something to hang your hat on, something to enjoy. Seeing a goal from outside the box like that, you're right. It takes me back to old times. We could have another nostalgia fest here, just thinking about old Hany goals. Maybe we will do that later. What was the best thing that you saw this week, Evan?
Best thing I saw was the return of Walker Zimmerman. I was watching on TV. You guys were there, so I'm sure you can confirm this, but the roar from the crowd when he came in as a sub was powerful and almost desperate. And we talked about this before, but if they are going to turn this season around, it's going to be because Walker is back taking charge, taking responsibility for the team and the performance on the field, not only in the defense, which we desperately need, but even just that authoritative leadership that will carry from back to front. And so now that he's back, there is a glimmer of hope in my mind.
It was great to see. It was great to see him back. It was nice to see Tyler Boyd back. I know that we've had our criticisms of him. We'll see if he can actually deliver. I thought he at least brought another wrinkle to the offense that we haven't seen in a while. And did you guys think, while we're talking about the defense and Zimmerman, he only played for about 12 minutes or so in the game. Did you guys think Jack Mayer looked better this week? Didn't he look pretty decent?
Yeah, I don't think the failures of this game could be hanged on Jack Mayer. I think he and Kalman, actually. Kalman, I mean, I hope we're not hanging our hat on him. But yeah, I think they both actually played a pretty good game. I think our problem was more in midfield this game.
It was nice to see a bounce back from Mayer, and I'm hoping that that continues. Now with Zimmerman there, as we've talked about, maybe he provides that steadiness, that leadership that Mayer needs to thrive. So we'll see what happens.
I hope Walker is his Obi-Wan kind of guiding.
There you go.
Jack, just kick the ball away. Don't kick it to the other team. Mm-hmm. That's a shitty Obi-Wan. I'm so sorry.
Alex Muil is your sister. I don't know. Okay, well, what about the worst thing that you guys saw this week? Evan, what's the worst thing you saw?
Jeez, the fact that we only got 1 point against the worst team in the league at home. I mean, of course, it was another game where we lost a lead. If I remember correctly, it's the fourth in a row where we have gone up and then lost the lead. And it's just so disheartening. And it reminds me of when we talked about team character. And it just seems like they almost expect it at this point. When we went up a goal against San Jose, we actually continued on the front foot. We didn't just like park the bus. We continued on, but just that horrible defensive error where I don't know if it was just a busted offside trap. I don't know if Lovitz and Coleman thought the other guy was supposed to be marking the eventual goal scorer. I don't know what was going on, but man, to lose a lead against San Jose at home, awful.
I believe it was a botched offside trap. Isn't that the way you saw it, John?
Yeah, it was that. There were two distinct errors. It was the offside trap and the complete lack of pressure on the passer in midfield.
That's right.
I went back and watched it, and you're not expecting Hany Mukhtar to be the main defensive guy, but both he, Sean Davis, and Drew Yearwood on that play all are standing around the passer, and nobody made a move to him. Nobody made a move. Rodriguez, I think, was the guy that actually passed it. And
that's right.
Nobody made a step up at all. And that's the main thing you got to do. You have to pressure that passer in midfield if you're playing a high line. And then there's also the error in the back. It wouldn't have mattered if somebody had got on the guy to begin with. So, yeah, it was just bad all around. It was a bad team claim.
We just are not good enough to afford those mistakes, but we make them all the time. So I guess that's why we're not good enough. But it's sort of a chicken and egg situation. We didn't used to do that. We used to be so much better at playing on defense on all parts of the field, putting pressure on, especially through the midfield. We could put pressure on people. I don't know what our deal is this year.
Do you think we should go back to parking the bus or playing more on the back foot and hoping for counterattacks, even maybe at home? I mean, at this point, do we need to shift something so fundamentally like that just to get out of the funk?
Possibly, and it might work now that we have Walker back. But then again, how long are we going to have Walker back? I don't know if he's in the running for Copa America, but I've heard a lot of people say that he should be in the running for one of the overage spots in the Olympics. That'd be a whole nother month that he'd be out. And it would be right in the Middle Leagues Cup, too, which is our only hope for fun this year, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer there is.
I hate to think of going back to the days where we would just play defense for 70% of the game, because inevitably it's just so much pressure on those guys to do that. And I don't think that our midfielders can hang that long without making a bunch of mistakes. So the midfield that we have, we need to be playing more possession, being on offense as much as we can. But we're so weak in that area, we can't do either one, you know? We just... We're in between a rock and a hard place.
Damned if you don't.
Amen. John, what's the worst thing that you saw this week?
The worst thing I saw this week was one particular moment, I think in the 85th minute, and it was Sam Surridge coming off for Till Bunbury in a 1-1 tie game against the worst damn team in the league at home. I'm fine with bringing Till on. We needed attackers. We needed to score a goal. Bring Teal on for Alex Moel. I don't even know who was on the field at that point. Somebody that wasn't another guy that could score. And it was just a white flag. I know Teal actually had a chance, but damn, have them both on. We got to score. Oh, it pissed me off so much. Oh, man. I'm still not over it. It's 72 hours since the damn game, and I'm still mad about it.
Teal Bunbury has not scored as a substitute in, I think it's 2.5 years.
Yeah.
He has scored a few goals over that course of time, but only as a starter. He's never scored in the past 2 years as a sub. And it's 5 minutes left in the game plus extra time. Really, what are we saving Sam for at that point? You know, is he really so exhausted he can't play for another 5 minutes?
We don't have a midweek game. He's got a whole week to rest. Why bring off Sam Surridge?
Yeah.
He's had a few chances. He didn't make the most of them. But get all the guys who could potentially be in the box and could potentially contribute in some way to a goal happening. Get them all on the damn field, Gary.
Yeah.
Don't bring one of them off for a guy that's not as good as the first guy you brought off.
Yeah.
Oh, you pissed me off, Gary.
One other stat just to, I guess, reinforce Evan's worst thing is that it's someone I saw on Twitter this week. When Nashville Soccer Club has the lead in a game this year, they have been outscored 12-3.
Oof. Oof.
That's bad. That's a recipe for lots of draws and losses.
God.
That's where we sit right now.
Heartbreaking.
On that delightful note, let's move on to the hot chicken takes.
All right.
Okay, guys, we can keep talking about this team or not.
I don't even know why we do, man. Oh.
But I'm going to give you the opportunity to step outside the box tonight if you want to with your Nashville hot chicken take. What's your spiciest take of the week? Soccer, NSC, whatever. John, what's your hottest take?
My hottest take of the week, it is tangentially related to Nashville SC.
Okay.
Brad Pitt is full of shit. And by that, I mean the movie Moneyball.
Oh,
And just the whole idea of Moneyball. That's my hot take of the week is Moneyball is bullshit.
100% cosign.
I think it's pretty clear at this point that whatever Mike Jacobs is doing, it's some kind of version of Moneyball. He's got some kind of plan. It's some kind of formula that he's figured out. A general allocation money, the lack of international players. There's something that he's trying to do that he thinks he's smarter than everyone else. He ain't smarter than everyone else. He's had success. He's had a little modicum of success. I think that Moneyball, like as an overall concept, is a way for cheap sports owners to take advantage in American sports of the idea of revenue sharing. They're trying to field a competitive enough team that they don't get kicked out of the league.
Right.
That they get to make the money from the revenue sharing, from TV money and whatever else is happening, that they make a profit. It's not there to win championships.
It's their Office Space approach. They're just doing enough to not get fired.
Getting by. It's just getting by. And I think that's what all of Moneyball is. Like if you look at the old Oakland A's of the early 2000s.
Oh, and I did a lot.
Yeah. They were just trying to get by. They were just trying to get a competitive enough team that the American League didn't say, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Go play in AAA.
So you know that I have been a lifelong Oakland A's fan, have followed this story for decades, and I fell in love with them in the late 80s in the Royd era of Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire.
Back
Those
when
were
they
the
were
days,
trying
guys.
to win.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they won in the Earthquake World Series in 89. But yes, then they sucked for a whole long time, and then they started to get good again with Bean's Moneyball operation of the team.
Yep.
And it ultimately failed every time. And every other instance where we've tried the Moneyball approach in any sport, I've never seen it be successful unless it is backed by a whole lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. You have to spend money to make Moneyball work, which negates the whole idea of Moneyball.
That's right. The Red Sox won 3 World Series.
They spent money.
But with the Moneyball approach and advanced analytics and that kind of thing. But they also dumped a shit ton of money on players to make it happen.
Yeah.
When Philadelphia tried to Moneyball their way through the draft and tanking and all that kind of stuff.
You're talking about the NBA?
Yeah, the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
It failed miserably. And now they're in no man's land. You know, I think they're the 7th seed this year. They can't accomplish anything. They're wasting the prime of one of the generational talents in the NBA. Over and over again, I've seen this Moneyball concept be a complete fall flat on your face type of approach. I think you're absolutely right. I love this hot take. It's spicy, but it's true.
Yeah. It's a way to feel smarter than everybody else in the room.
And still lose.
Yeah.
I found a thing that you guys didn't think about. Fuck you. No, you didn't. You found a bunch of guys that got hot. Like, that's what Billy Bean did. He found a bunch of guys that they had a good season. They had a few good seasons, maybe. There wasn't anything magical about it. There was a statistical analysis. And if you back the statistical analysis with a bunch of money, then you have a championship team. But we're not doing that. Mike Jacobs isn't doing that. I mean, it's not his fault necessarily. I don't know how much money that Ingram or whoever is giving him to work with. But it's pissing me off.
Yeah, there's one other factor to Moneyball that you're supposed to use in order to employ that strategy and reap its benefits, and that's actually paying attention to advanced analytics.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're doing any of that either. Even if we are moneyballing this, we're not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, I think we're moneyballing like the particular rules of MLS, but we're not moneyballing the on-field performance.
The player analysis, the player evaluation.
I mean, I don't know.
We took a player like Mackenzie Gaines, who, by all rights, that would be the perfect sort of Moneyball candidate, right? That's low dollar, high upside, that's really good in one particular area. And we shipped him out after 2 months, played him like in 3 games. That was it. I know we're going to try and flip him for some international player here, but that was a complete anti-Moneyball move. And yet we sit on some of these guys. Sean Davis is an example where I'm like, we brought him in. We've paid him a decent amount of money.
Do you know how much?
I don't know. Do you know?
It's like $1 million per year. I think he's the 5th highest paid player on the team. I think there's our 3 designated players.
Then there's Randall Leal. And then Sean Davis.
My goodness.
It's a mess. Okay, Evan, have you got a hot take to beat that one?
Gosh. Well, since I already brought a pretty hot take early on when I said that maybe human beings don't have free will.
I do like that one. That's pretty spicy.
I'm going to express more of a fear, if that's okay with you. And my not quite hot take, more like fear, is that we are going to be the worst team in the league by like the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
If we keep getting draws and losses and some of these other teams hit their stride, we may be the new San Jose here in about a month's time.
It's entirely possible. I think that's pretty spicy hot take as well, actually, but I don't think that it's out of bounds. I will say Broadway Sports had their power rankings up this week, and we're 3rd from worst. They still had San Jose behind us, so they tier them. They tier all the teams. And the next to last tier was us and San Jose. And I guess that once you have a tie like that, where we were at home, that's probably justified. The Chicago Fire were also in that tier with us. 3 teams that were classified as definitely bad. There was one tier that was below that one, and it was made specifically for one team, and that's the New England Revolution. So that tier was called awful. And so they're still perceived as being maybe a hair worse. They are the last place team in the East.
Yeah, I will say a few things for them. They played 2 more games in CONCACAF than we did. And also, they might be kind of a story for us in the future because they hired Caleb Porter as their new coach this offseason. And honestly, if we were looking for a coach this past offseason, Caleb Porter probably would have been like one of the top of my list. So it's kind of like a cautionary tale. Even if we hire a guy that's got success in the past, it's not a guarantee that you're going to move forward and be awesome. I don't think there's a panacea.
It's because the nature part of that formula has to be there too, John.
Yep, that's right.
You have to do both because once again, we solved that formula. Right now, I do think New England, they've only scored 6 goals in 9 games so far this year, -12 goal differential. They've only got 4 points. So we are slightly better than them because we've had a few more draws, but the gap between the two is getting closer all the time.
So what you're saying is that we should really look forward to when we play them. That should be a really fun soccer game.
Well, that's the good news that we have in front of us. Starting with this San Jose game, that game and the next 6 or 7 are finally against some easier competition. We started off the year against some pretty good teams, but the rest of our schedule for May is much more favorable, and then going into early June. So we've got Montreal next. They're 10th in the East, I think. Charlotte's 11th in the East. We play Toronto. They're in the top tier. Atlanta is in that 9, 10, 11 range. Montreal again. Then we play Cincinnati, who's second right now. And then we play New England, who's last. So 2 of those teams out of the next 7 games are actually playoff teams right now. The rest are borderline or out of it currently. So we have an opportunity to put some points on the board. But as we just saw with the San Jose game, that's not a guarantee by any means. Well, let's move on then to a new segment for you guys. I hope you're going to enjoy this one. This is called Mount Rushmore. Excellent suggestion by Evan for us to do some Rushmore segments, and I thought that in honor of Hany's 100th goal, it'd be a great opportunity for you guys to tell me what your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 Hany Mukhtar goals have been in his career. Hopefully you've done the research and have a list, or maybe you knew them off the top of your head.
Okay, this is fun. I love it. I'm going to start with the goal at home against Orlando in 2021, where Hany receives a pass from CJ in the midfield, and he kind of angles his way to the goal. He goes all the way through the defense. He uses multiple step overs, and then he scores from like 15 yards out. Love that goal. So that's my first one.
Okay, great.
Second one, also at home, this time against Chicago in 2021, where he completes the fastest hat trick in MLS history by scoring a free kick goal from about 20 yards out, so far up into the corner the keeper never had a chance at it. Amazing day. I loved that game.
That was one of my most fun games that I've seen. That's for sure.
It was amazing. Amazing. Okay. Third, this is at San Jose in 2022, and he slices his way all the way through the defense from way back in the midfield. And then he gets right maybe at the top of the box or into the box, but he uses this little feint. He doesn't even touch the ball. He just kind of feints like he's going to maybe pass it off, but instead he takes this shot with the outside of his boot, slots it past the keeper, and it was incredible. I loved that goal. All right, and last on my Mount Rushmore of favorite Hany Mukhtar goals. At home against Columbus last year. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? Where he uses like 3 or 4 step overs in a run up to goal. He ends up scoring one of those prototypical Hany Mukhtar goals where he gets so down far to the end line, but still manages to blast a just absolute missile into the upper 90 over the keeper, impossible angle. I mean, this is the quintessential Hany Mukhtar goal.
That one was almost like, did he pull some sort of magic trick to make it get into the goal? Is that your George Washington? If you're ranking them, is that your Washington on Rushmore?
I cannot tell a lie. That's my George Washington.
John, was there any overlap with your Rushmore there?
There were. I had both of the Chicago free kick and that run against Orlando in the playoff. That was a playoff game. And man, that was so fun. We won a playoff game at home against Orlando at Nissan Stadium. And that was a beautiful goal. Those step overs. I mean, he looked like, obviously, Messi's left-footed, but you remember the early years of Lionel Messi, he would play kind of on the right wing and kind of cut diagonally across the field. Well, that's what he kind of did. He picked it up kind of on the right side of the box and kind of cut all the way across the field. He finished it with his right instead of his left, but yeah, it was a beautiful goal.
So what are we missing?
I've got 2 other goals that I mentioned that I was thinking of for my Mount Rushmore. One was a goal against Dallas in 2022 at Geodis Park. It was very early in the match, and he kind of took it down the wing, and he was at a really difficult angle on the right side of the box. And instead of trying to cross it like most players would have done, he just hit the shit out of the ball and rifled it top near corner The keeper had no idea it was going to go there. You don't see too many goals like that, and it was a beautiful goal. It was very similar, actually, to the Columbus goal that Evan mentioned. It was like from a really difficult angle on the right side of the box. It was awesome. Another one, this one wasn't a particular like athletic move. It was just a goal that I really loved. It was actually just a tap in. It was against Austin in 2022, Austin FC, fairly late in the year. And that was the year that there were basically two candidates that everybody was talking about for MVP. It was Hany Mukhtar and Sebastian Drusi of Austin FC. And we played them pretty late in the season at Nashville. And I think we won 3-1. I fact check me on that. It was just a little tap in near the end of the game. At that point, I think everybody in the stadium knew, Hany just clinched that MVP award.
Oh, I remember that, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. That was fun.
That was really awesome because I don't think we've had an MVP in any Nashville or Tennessee pro sports other than that season. No. Hany Mukhtar is it. He's the one. He's the one on the list. And that season was special, man. That was the first year at Geodis Park. Ugh, chills down my spine.
I know.
I want to go back to there, man.
I know it.
That was a 3-0 win versus Austin. And Hany had 2 goals.
Yeah.
He had one in the 82nd minute, and then he had one in the 91st minute to really just put the icing on the cake and let everybody know who's the man that year. It was Hany.
Yeah.
Is that the one where he took his jersey off and showed Mukhtar, like turned it around backwards?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I got to say, this was my favorite ever assignment for this show.
Oh, good.
I got to go on YouTube and watch all these goals again. I was watching all the highlights. I was verklempt, man. Man, this guy has done so much for this city and so much for this team. Those goals, magical guy.
He's really special, and we're lucky to have been able to sit here and witness the peak of his career. I mean, certainly the past few years have been unbelievable. And to win the MVP, the Golden Boot, to lead this team, to drag them kicking and screaming into the playoffs every year, he's been fantastic. He's been a real delight to watch.
An absolute hero.
Yep.
While we're on a Rushmore kick, I'm enjoying this so much. Let's maybe step outside of the realm of soccer a little bit. This whole concept of the Mount Rushmore, I think it comes from Bill Simmons, very famous podcaster, sports analyst. He's been around for 20-something years now. He brought up the Mount Rushmore concept early in his columns that he used to write for ESPN, and now he still does them sometimes on his podcast. I'm not trying to rip him off or anything by doing this. It's just a great concept, and I think a lot of people use this now. But thought it would be fun to maybe just ask you guys to throw out a Mount Rushmore for the best rewatchable television shows. And that it may not necessarily be just the best shows ever, but it's the ones you keep going back to the well on. You know, like I can rewatch that entire series again. I've got a few, and I wondered if you guys do as well. So I don't know, Evan, have you got some TV shows that you just keep going back to, like a comfortable old blanket you can't get enough of?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. So the original would be Seinfeld. I mean, I loved it then. I love it now. I've probably watched through, the entire series probably 3 or 4 times at least. So Seinfeld, The British Office. I love both offices, but The British Office is special because Ricky Gervais is just absolutely brilliant. Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That one never gets old. Charlie, I mean, he just cracks me up every time. And then the most recent addition to my Mount Rushmore of TV shows would be Letterkenny, of course.
Oh, yes. I thought about Letterkenny long and hard for a possibility on mine. I haven't gone back and rewatched it yet, so I was hesitant to put it on a Rushmore for rewatchable shows, but it definitely could make it in the future, I think. What about you, John?
Yeah, I've got a few myself. I'm going to go number 1 with Freaks and Geeks.
Oh, yeah. Terrific choice.
Original Judd Apatow series. It only lasted 1 season, but wife and I have probably watched that 1 season 10, 12 times. And every time it's joyous. Number 2, I would think 30 Rock. 30 Rock.
Oh, wow.
It seems to get more and more prescient somehow. Yeah, it's just funny. It's joke a second. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and it features Elizabeth Banks.
That's right. There you go.
I remembered
America's
something,
sweetheart.
guys. I remembered something.
It features everybody good, really. Number 3 would be a very formative series for me in my comedic sense. It would be the first 7 or 8 seasons of The Simpsons. Very formative. Unfortunately, it's gone on for like 30 more years. I don't know who the fuck is watching it. Not me. But yeah, those first 7 or 8 seasons are impeccable.
Unassailable. I agree.
So good. And I'm going to go with an underdog for the 4th one. It's one my wife and I like a lot. Every time I mention it, a lot of people don't know it. It's called The Middle, and it was an ABC family sitcom, and it is hilarious to me. If you're I'll say middle-class American with kids, everything about it rings true. And not only this, but I'm going to give a plug. One of the stars of The Middle is going to be in Nashville at Third Coast Comedy Club on Friday night, and my wife and I are going. Her name is Eden Scher. She is a very funny woman, and we're going to watch it. But yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore.
Fantastic. You guys both went comedy straight across the board, which I thought that's interesting and probably is going to illustrate the stark differences in my personality from yours because mine are drastically different. You guys are kind of having burgers and fries and maybe, I don't know, some desserts and stuff like that. I went for the big steaks.
Ooh.
My George Washington's Mad Men. And I just think that show is incredible. It just breaks down who we are and how we got here. It starts in 1959, goes to the early 70s, and paints the picture of American life that's not the typical journey that you see on broadcast television, but I just think it gets to the heart of so much of what drives us, what's in our personalities and everything like that. And it's incredibly funny too. It's got moments of incredible hilarity, and I could watch Pete Campbell be embarrassed 100 different ways for the rest of my life. So it's the show I keep going back to and watching a whole bunch.
Can I say 2 words that can make anybody that's watched Mad Men cry?
Okay.
The carousel.
Oh, God. Yes. It made Harry cry. Yeah. That might have been the perfect episode. Actually, there's another episode called The Suitcase, which is the high watermark of that show in season 4. It's amazing. All right. But moving on. The Wire is incredible. Again, also incredibly funny, but also incredibly sad, but also incredibly exciting, but also incredibly stupid. I just like, there's so much, and it makes me never want to set foot in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Again, it's capturing a slice of life in America that's real. I mean, it's the most realistic show I've ever watched. I just think that The Wire is just up there. So the third one, what was the third one that I have? Oh, Succession, a fairly recent addition to the Mount Rushmore for me, but it's probably the funniest show that's like an hour-long drama. They're the most creative cussers that I've ever seen on television. I really enjoy that. And then I've had a real debate in my mind. I wanted to get a comedy on the list, a true pure sitcom comedy. And I really had to go back and forth between Seinfeld and The Office. Those were the two. And I wanted to put The Office because I've rewatched it more than I've rewatched Seinfeld, but I'm not putting it on the Mount Rushmore. It's an alternate. I'm putting Seinfeld up there because it's more complete. It's good from beginning to end. Whereas The Office is basically the Steve Carell show. And once he's out, the last 3 or 4 seasons are a waste of time. So I had to pull it from the list and put Seinfeld there instead.
Yeah.
That's my list. Well done, guys.
That was fun.
That is fun. Oh, yeah. We're having a soccer podcast. Let's get back to talking soccer. Let's do the weekend preview. This weekend, the Nashville Soccer Club will host Star Wars Night on Saturday, May the 4th, and they will also host CF Montreal, or as I like to call them, Montreal. Currently in the midst of a very average season, Montreal is 10th place in the Eastern Conference with 3 wins, 3 losses, and 3 draws, and a goal differential of -4. So far, Montreal has been a bit of an enigma. In the past 2 match days, Montreal scored a 2-1 victory over juggernaut Cincinnati, and then they secured a 2-2 draw versus lowly Orlando. Nashville will have to hope that finally a full game from Walker Zimmerman can help to stabilize a shaky backline and lead them to a much-needed victory. And while we're at it, we'll go ahead and look ahead. Nashville's going to make a short trip to Charlotte on Wednesday night following this weekend for a matchup against the only team that they've recorded a victory against so far this year. They faced off against Charlotte back on March 16th, and they won 2-1 in a game that featured goals from Sam Surridge and Alex Muyl. Right now, Charlotte is 11th in the East with a goal differential of -3. They've lost their last 2 games, one at home against Minnesota and one away at New York City FC. Guys, we're getting into a part of our schedule that's going to be a lot busier during the month of May. We've got 2 weeks where we're going to have Wednesday night games, and we play every weekend as well. What do you predict is going to happen over this coming weekend? And then, of course, throughout the rest of the next 6 or 7 games.
Can I predict with my heart or my brain?
Whichever part of your body you think you feel it the most.
Oh, God. I think we're going to beat Montreal.
Okay.
We're playing at home. Montreal are the most average team probably in MLS history. They're always in the league. No one's kicked them out.
They always show up.
No one's kicked them out yet. They're never the worst team. They've rarely been the best team, although they did have one really good season when Wilfred Nazi from Columbus was their coach. They're an okay team. They do have Joseph Martinez playing for them this year. And yes. I always kind of feel for that guy because I remember the first MLS game in Nashville SC's history, February 29th, 2020. Joseph Martinez, a few seasons before that, was one of the most explosive players in MLS history, playing for Atlanta United. I think he scored almost 40 goals one year. That game, probably 10, 20 feet in front of me, I remember sitting there. I was sitting there with my friend Jason Petty from the Assembly, and we heard his knee or his leg. We heard it with 60,000 people in the stadium pop, and it was a torn ACL, and he's never really been the same player since. And I always kind of feel for him because he was so good. But yeah, I hope that we shut him down completely and he totally sucks against us. So I think we're going to beat Montreal. And then I think we're going to beat Charlotte. That team sucks. Come on, we've already beat them once. They're the only MLS team we've beaten like the last 7 or 8 months. So we're going to beat them again.
Yeah. We're going to go on a little 2-win, a 2-game winning streak. That's great.
He's going to lead us back to respectability.
Wonderful. I like hearing that. How about you, Evan? What do you predict is going to happen?
Well, that's exactly what my heart predicts. John, my brain predicts otherwise. I just have the sense that it's going downhill fast. I think May is going to be rough. I think we'll be lucky to get ties at this point. And I even think we might have a new head coach by the end of the month.
Wow, that would be surprising.
The fact that we don't right now, as we're recording this podcast, 72 hours out of the San Jose game, makes me think nobody fucking cares.
Yeah.
I do think there's got to be some kind of pressure on him because he's been acting really weird lately, really kooky in those press conferences.
Quite defensive in this most recent one.
Yeah.
Continued to insist that it was injuries, it's other factors. The team still has it in them to be good, and he's the one who can lead them back to that. You know, that was kind of what his insistence was.
I mean, okay, Gary. I don't know if he's feeling the pressure from the fans. I mean, who knows if he heard those Gary out chants? Probably not. I doubt that he's hearing it from the front office. I don't know. I think they're happy with the way things are going. I think people are showing up at the stadium and spending a lot of money.
During halftime, took my daughter to the concession stand, to the Prince's Hot Chicken concession stand. It was delicious, by the way, but it took forever. It was a long line. And when you looked all down the concourse, either direction, every concession stand was packed. Just the longest lines. They're making money hand over fist. People were spending money. What was disappointing was that we didn't have those kind of crowds at the tailgating, though.
I do think that the more hardcore fans are maybe getting a bit frustrated.
Are you hearing talk, John, about people not coming to the games and not even being able to sell their tickets off?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more people that are in, say, the supporter section. They're the Broadway types.
Yeah.
They found cheap tickets and they're just showing up to party.
Yeah.
And nothing against that. I mean, hell, I would do it too. But like, I think a lot of the long-term fans are kind of getting fed up and not showing up to the games. I actually can't make this coming up Saturday game. And for maybe the first time ever, I'm feeling like not that big a deal.
You're not going to miss it? That hurts.
It sucks, doesn't it?
It hurts.
Like,
yeah.
It used to be like if I had to miss a game for family reasons or whatever, it was like tearing me apart to not be there. This time I'm like, well, I hope we win. I don't know that we will.
Well, guys, I'm going to spin this positively. I think we're going to have a very good game against Montreal. I think Hany is going to look lively. We're going to have a full game out of Zimmerman, so the defense is going to be a lot more stable. They're not going to score against us, and we're going to get at least 1, maybe 2 goals, and right out of there with 3 points, and it's going to feel a lot better. So you have plenty to look forward to. John, you're going to miss a great night. That's all I got to say. It's going to be great.
I hope
right.
really am filled with FOMO.
All right, guys. Well, I'm filling up my beer now, so that means it's time for us to get going. Really appreciate everybody listening this evening. Had a lot of fun talking to you guys. John, you want to let people know how to get in touch with us?
Absolutely. On Twitter and Instagram, we are Electric Gold NSC. We also have a Facebook page. And please, if you're out there, if you're listening, please give us it'd be nice. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or whatever. Just drop us some stars. If you hate us, just don't listen to us anymore. Don't give us a 1-star review. Just give us 5 stars.
I mean, what else are you doing with your life, with your miserable life? Okay, guys. Well, thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for listening. Really appreciate it again. We'll look forward to talking to you next time. Until then, come on, you boys in gold.
Come on, you boys in gold.
Come on, you boys in gold.